Hey, Lauren Johnston, intuitive life coach from Austin, Texas. And I wanted to share with you how I got into coaching, because it's kind of an interesting story. A client asked me the other day, and I thought, wow, that is funny. I had not put all of what I did prior to coaching together. But I was a bartender for about 7 years in the restaurant business. I heard a lot of different stories. My clients would come in and, sit at the bar and tell me their woes. And then I went to beauty school and opened my own hair salon and did that for about 18 years and enjoyed the connecting with people part. I really enjoyed listening to their problems and helping them solve and figure them out and all of that kind of stuff. And when I actually was in Sedona, Arizona, this has been probably about 18, 19 years ago, and I had a reading done by two separate psychics in Sedona, and both were telling me that I would be getting into the healing arts, and I just laughed because I was like, I'm a hairdresser, I have a hair salon, I love what I do. But fast forward a couple of years later, and I got into it. And the first step that I took was learning a system called resonance repatterning, which I still draw on. For the most part, that is the main modality that I use in my coaching practice. I'll explain a little bit later why I do that, because it is such a powerful modality to use. However, I did end up going along after years, and then I ended up studying Neuro-linguistics programming, and I became an NLP life coach. I learned timeline therapy and hypnosis in that process. A little bit later, I also became a Reiki master. So I do energy work and as well as energy clearing in people's homes or in office spaces as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my coaching practice, because as well as coaching is, and so many people have different ways of doing that, whether it's they create strategies for their clients, whether they have them do a lot of exercises at home. I use and pull from the resonance repatterning pretty much in every single session. So when I'm working with a client, whether it's video, phone, or in person, I sit and we visit for a while, and I just kind of listen to them. I listen to them, what they're saying on a verbal level, but I also listen to their soul level. I get a feeling of what it is that they need to really shift their resonance on. This is where the resonance repatterning comes in very handy, because if a client comes in and say they are really struggling in their main, their marriage, their significant relationship. After a while, as we're talking, I generally can pick up words that they say, sentences that they say, that literally kind of affect me in the solar plex area, which is my power area, but also in the nervous system. So I will redirect them into creating, okay, so we know what you don't want. And from that, let's talk a little bit about what you do want. And that's part of the coaching process, is figuring out, we know what you don't want, let's figure out what you do want. And then we need to activate what you do want in your body, mind system. And if you are resonating with what you don't want, it's going to be really a struggle for you to create and manifest what you are wanting until we clear the resonance, meaning resonance means what's true to you. Doesn't mean what reality is. It doesn't matter what your history is. If you believe that in your marriage that I'm not worthy of this relationship, or another one that I hear from my clients all the time, I'm not good enough. Another thing that I hear from my clients in relationships, there's always, a lot of blame in the other person. They're, they don't treat me well. I don't feel important. And that's it all kind of comes back to what I've found when it's a relationship type situation, is they don't feel important. And so because of that, we want to clear the resonance with not feeling important, and we want to activate them making themselves important to them. Because when they can make themselves important to them, then one or two things are going to happen. Either that person's partner is going to start showing up and mirroring them, because now they're resonating with making themselves important. And if you make yourself important, you feel important. They're going to either mirror that, or they're going to continue to do their own behavior because they have their own baggage and issues that they're coming to the table with. But you're going to start to move away from that. You're going to either set some really clear boundaries, or you may even move away from the relationship. But the bottom line is this: when we figure this all out, then I go into doing a resonance repatterning. And again, it's not that I so much do a traditional resonance repatterning as much as I pull from the resonance repatterning system. Usually, generally, if I have them in person, or even if they're in the privacy of their own home and we're doing a video, then I usually have them lay down. In my office, I have them lay down on a massage table. If they're at home, usually in their bed or on the couch. Because when you're in that relaxed state, when your physical body is actually in a relaxed state, then I can identify what you resonate with through a muscle indicator. And I'll explain a little bit about muscle checking here in a bit, but the point being made is that the more relaxed the person is physically, then the more that the subconscious mind is able to tap into, that we're able to tap into the subconscious mind. Okay, so being in a relaxed state is very, very important in doing the work that I do. We will be having you say statements out loud. I will feed you the statements, and you will say them out loud. And I will muscle check on your arm if you're in person, and if you are in video conference, or like sometimes I do remote group repatternings, I muscle check on my fingers. So let me explain muscle checking. Muscle checking, some people call it muscle testing. I call it muscle checking because I feel like test sounds like there's a fail or a pass to it. So muscle checking, what it is if you resonate with something that's true to you, then your muscle will actually tense up, which gives what we call an on response. If you are not resonating with something to be true to you, then the muscle will actually relax. And this is a way that we can identify not only what you resonate with on the conscious level, but what you resonate with on the subconscious level. Okay? Because a lot of times, like if I have a core limiting belief that I'm not important and I haven't been making myself important, then I'm going to resonate with that. So my muscle indicator will definitely let me know. But there's other things that might come up from the subconscious mind around I'm not important, and that would be I don't respect myself, or I don't feel respected by others. And I may not have that in a conscious level because I'm still focusing on not feeling important. Then I will muscle check for the subconscious mind holding the belief that I feel disrespected as well, or I don't respect myself as well. So with the muscle indicator, I usually do it in person on the forearm right here. And again, I just press lightly. And if that person is resonating with something to be true to them, the muscle will actually tighten up just slightly. And if it's not true to them, the muscle will actually relax. The arm will actually move a little bit when they're in a off response or relaxed response, and the arm will usually not move at all, if maybe very slight. But that's not what I'm muscle checking. I'm muscle checking the muscle, not the arm moving or not moving. When I'm doing remote groups or video or phone, the way I use the muscle indicator is the same thing. These muscles between the two fingers and the muscle here is my indication whether it's going to relax or tense up. So I do a process where the middle finger is pushing down on the pointer finger, and I'm got an on response, or I'm resonating with something to be true, then the muscle here will tense up. So it will be an on response would be like this, and an off response would be like this or like that. So, and it takes time when you learn the muscle indicator tool. It takes time to trust that you're doing it correctly, but I've been doing it for 15 years, so I completely trust it. But again, when I'm doing remote stuff where you're not in person with me, I will use my fingers as an on response and an off response. And it's right on every single time. So going back to what I was saying about, I have the client laying down, we're in a very relaxed state. I have them repeat statements. Some are negative, some are positive. The first time around when I have them say the statements, they will not resonate with the positive statements, but they will resonate with the negative statements. When we take something negative out of the system, we want to put something positive into the system. Once we do that, then I will introduce a modality that has a very high vibrational frequency. So they're coming in with this this issue, and that's a very dense, heavy vibration to it. Their issue, their core limiting belief, a negative emotion, that is a very low vibrational frequency. Well, when we introduce a high vibrational frequency, it could be color, it could be sound therapy. Particularly about 90% of the time, my clients seem to need a sound modality, probably because I'm very much of a sound person. That's what I'm finding. But there's also acupuncture points, but we use a diagram. We don't do it on the client because I'm not an acupuncturist, but we have a diagram of all the different acupuncture points, and usually I'll use tuning points, proxying the diagram for the client. This is also the reason why we can do this remotely, because again, we're not touching the client except for the muscle indicator, but that's pretty much the only time. Once they do this high vibrational frequency, there's also essential oils. I also use Bach flower essence drops. Those work on an energetic level. They're awesome. Color, sound, I think I mentioned those. But once we do that, the most important part, and this is where I feel like I finally got a download about how important this is and how much I need to make sure I build this into each session, is where we have a very, what I call integration, and it's a quiet time where pretty much I've done my work, and it's the client, it's their body wisdom that comes in, and it's so cool to watch. Like, I get so excited because I'll sit next to them and I'll just watch them, and it's this real quiet time, and they just go into this, some of them fall asleep completely. Some people get visions. I had a session earlier this morning where she had some of her angels and guides that came to her and spoke to her and gave her information. And, some people see colors or visions. Some people are making a grocery list. There's no right way or wrong way of this period of time. And it could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. Just depends on how much time we have and what that client needs. And the way I can tell when we're ready to go back and check the statements is my system begins it's in tune, and I'm just sitting there watching them. I will have this, it's like a sigh, a real, just this real sigh and very relaxed layer is what I call it. Because sometimes, like this morning, the client that I had 3 of those. And with each one of them, the first one was just, and I could feel it. And I'm always like, is she done? No. And I got a clear no. And then there was a second one, like 2 minutes later. And I was like, is she done? And I got a clear no. And then the third one was probably about 5 minutes later. And I got, yeah. And it was interesting because about that point, her face from this very relaxed state, she closed her mouth and licked her lips. And like I could tell she was back. And it was really cool for me to see that. And that's when I had them wiggle their fingers and their toes and take a deep breath and stretch. Let out a little sound, because a little bit of movement helps them to come back into their body fully and back into the room. It's really a cool process. Then we go back to the statements. I muscle check them again. And it's amazing because they will be off for their negative statements. They will be on for their positive statements. And a lot of times, especially their opening statement, because it's pretty much is written about what they came in, the issue that they came into the session. I will have said the first time around from 0 to 10, 10 being the most true or the most charged with that belief. Where are you? And it's usually 8, 9, 10. And then when I ask them again, okay, where are you now on that spectrum? And that it's anywhere from 1 to a 4 or 5 max. And they notice right off the bat that they feel completely different. And they usually have a smile when they leave. And there's a real heart connection that I can feel because their heart's opened up. And my favorite part is to see them smile as they're leaving and give them a hug and send them on their way. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I would love to answer any of your questions, and I hope you have a wonderful day.